Hi, I'm Deacon Liam and welcome to the Chaplaincy. This year, 2020, is being known as the Year of the Word, the God who speaks, and it's a themed year encouraging Catholics to get to know the Bible a little bit better. And so this is the first of a series of videos where I want to look at a little part of the Bible. And I guess there's no better place to start than the very beginning, the book of Genesis, which name literally means beginning. There's a couple of parts to understanding Genesis, and the first part is prehistory. It's where we get those stories of Adam and Eve, the Tower of Babel, Noah, these quite mythical and legendary stories. And it's a type of literature which is there to teach us about God. Quite often we can find these stories stumbling blocks because we think we have to believe them to be like literal truths, that these are historical documents. But actually, just like so many other parts of the Bible and so many other books, but particularly in Genesis, it's a mashing together of poetry, of storytelling, of parables and history. And it's important to know which stories are which. So these stories at the very beginning of the Bible, the two creation accounts, the 7-day creation, and then the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, the story of the fall with the talking snake, Noah, the flood. These are stories that use parable and symbology to teach us about what God is like and also to teach us what we're like. Even taking the story of Adam and Eve for an example, we're given perfection as humanity and then we spoil it. We make bad decisions. And this is something for me that is so relevant still today, that we are so good at messing up a good thing when we've got a good thing. We don't know how to care for it. And so the start of Genesis is a way of just recognizing the human condition for what it is. These were the stories that were taught to children to help them understand themselves and understand what God is like. You know, again, from this creation story, many other sort of worldviews at the time believed in a creation God, but a creation God that created humanity out of conflict. Or we get the idea from the Greeks and the Romans that humans were there to just be played with and messed with and interacted with. But from our Genesis story, we're told that we have a God of love who creates out of love. A God who in himself is completely perfect and lacks nothing, but chooses to create out of love so he has something to love. Because love without somewhere to go really isn't love. But even though within the Trinity, God is a fully loving relationship, but love also creates. Loving relationships create and they flow forth creativity and they create things which in turn love. So the story of Genesis sets up this dynamic that God loves what he creates and we are loved by God as his creations. After the prehistory, it moves into this section of known as the patriarchs. It's where we get Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, these historical figures. Now there's still myth, there's still legend, there's still storytelling and parable interwoven into these encounters. But from this point on, it becomes the story of a family, a pretty dysfunctional but very ordinary family that face a lot of the same challenges that families today still face. And the book follows them through growing in their relationship with God, learning how to serve him, learning how to love each other, making a mess of it as they go along. And the story follows them and how God tries to interact with them and bring them back. So what's really set up in the book of Genesis is that we have a loving God who lovingly creates us as something to love. How he gives us teachings and commands like any parent does to help us access the fullness of love. But because of our human nature, we disobey, we do our own thing, we make mistakes and we hurt each other. We're expelled from perfection, not by the loving God, but through our own choices. And then it becomes the story of how God tries to bring us back and then how we turn away again and bring us back and turn away again. So in many ways, the story of the rest of the whole Bible is established in Genesis. That we have disobedience, loss, and then restoration. And this is a pattern that will continue through the Old Testament until the permanent solution to that loss and the permanent solution to restoration is found in Jesus Christ. So, book 1 of the Bible, Genesis, a pretty colourful read if you're going to go for it from cover to cover. And the most important thing is that we recognise that there's different types of literature within this book. Some history, but lots of myth, lots of legend, lots of parable, lots of symbology, all to try and help us understand who God is and who we are as well. Thanks for stopping by the chaplaincy, and I'll see you soon.